Hi, welcome to Chaldean Grammar, uh, Chapter 1. My name is Father Andrew Yonan. I am co-author of the Chaldean Grammar book, which is what we're going to be going through in these lectures, and Introductory Chaldean, which I'm assuming you've already gone through. And there's a helpful video series with Father Daniel Shaba going through this book. I'm going to assume that you've already gone through this book and that you already know the alphabet and can read pretty well. So I'm not going to go through the introduction of Chaldean grammar right now, because I'm just going to assume that you can read, and we're going to start just with chapter 1. So right now I'm going to share my screen and open up the PDF of this book. Okay, so Chaldean grammar. I'm going to scroll down to chapter 1 and we will get started. If you don't have a copy of Chaldean grammar, I'll leave a link in the description of this video. Okay, so there's the alphabet, pronunciation. Skipping through all that, let's just get right into the grammar. Chapter 1, masculine and feminine nouns and some prepositions. I'm going to spend most of the time, I'll just kind of read through the text, but I think the value of these video recordings will be mostly in hearing the pronunciation if this is your first time learning Chaldean. And if you you sort of aren't around people who speak, it'll be good for you to hear it. So I'll spend some extra time pronouncing the words. In the Chaldean language, there are two genders of noun. There are masculine nouns like zona, and I'm starting from the right because it's read from right to left. Zona, which means time. Brona, which is son or boy. Gaura, man. Chethna, groom. Reshana, leader. Arya, lion. Susya, horse. Kursia, chair. Let me make one note. You noticed in the word for groom, it's a heth, which is pronounced he, but in many Chaldean words, it's pronounced like a ch. And sometimes that's indicated with a heavy dot above or below the heth, sometimes not, and you just sort of have to know the word. It's just kind of the way the language works. As you learn vocabulary words, you'll hear whether the heth is pronounced as a heth or as a ch. So those are some examples of masculine nouns. Some examples of feminine nouns are shata, year. Brata, daughter or girl. Bachta, which is a woman. It can also mean wife. Reshanta, which is a female leader. Ariotha, which is a lioness. Susta, a mare, a female horse. Tablitha, which is a small table. Notice that there are no neuter nouns or adjectives or verbs in the Chaldean language. That means linguistically everything in Chaldean and in all dialects of Aramaic and in all Semitic languages, everything is either he or she. So even neutral objects, even like time or a book or a chair, they don't have a biological sex or gender, but grammatically speaking, they're either referred to as he or she. They're either masculine or feminine. As you learn the language, you'll understand what that means. Also note that since there are no definite or indefinite articles in standard Chaldean, each of the nouns above can be translated in any of the following ways depending on the context. So there's no word for the in standard spoken Chaldean. There's no word for a. So to say, let's go to this first example, shata. If you say the word shata, it can mean year. It can also mean a year, or it can also mean the year. There's just no word for a or the. There's no definite or indefinite article. And so just the noun by itself can mean the noun itself or the noun with the indefinite article, a year, or the noun with the indefinite article a year, or with the definite article the year. Brata can mean girl, or a girl, or the girl. Gaura can mean man, or a man, or the man. Arya can mean lion, or a lion, or the lion, and so on with every noun. The formation of feminine nouns. In general, there's a general principle that usually holds true. The feminine is distinguished from the masculine by a tau or thou at the end of the word before the final alap. So if you take a masculine noun like melka, which means king, how do you say queen? You take the basic root, which is the mim, lameth, and kap, and you take that noun melka and you add a thou before the final alap. So melka for king becomes meliktha for queen. This is a very good illustration of a general principle. Melka, meliktha. If you want to say a saint, you say the word qaddisha. If it's a female saint, you say qaddishta. Qaddisha, qaddishta. So that ta at the end indicates that this is a feminine noun. When is it going to be a tha and when is it going to be a ta? My suggestion is don't worry about memorizing rules for when it's one or the other. Just learn the word. I think it's much easier to just sort of learn the vocabulary. It's a more kind of immediate way to get to the language, because even if there are some sets of rules that will determine whether it's tha or ta, those rules have many exceptions and they're not really worth spending your time learning. That's my suggestion. Re'eshana, leader. Re'eshanta, a female leader. Susya, a horse, a male horse. Susta, a mare, a female horse. In this case, you see the yod is actually replaced with a tau. Again, I would not stress out about learning which rules when it happens when. Just learn them as vocab words. I think that's a much less stressful way to deal with it. So in general, this is how you can indicate a feminine noun, that it has a tau alep at the end, as opposed to a masculine noun almost always has just an alep at the end. However, there are masculine nouns with a radical tau, a tau that is part of the root of the word. So the word for house is betha or betha, or in some dialects, beta. Those are all ways to pronounce the word for house. And if you notice, so that house has a tha or a ta at the end, this doesn't mean, in this case, it doesn't mean that it's a feminine noun. The word house is masculine. Now, why does that matter? It's going to matter when we learn adjectives. You're going to have to take an adjective and make it masculine or feminine to match the noun that you're modifying. We'll learn that in a chapter or two. So it's important. We don't know why yet it's important. But betha is a masculine noun. So if you wanted to say a large house, you would say betha raba, not betha rabtha, which is the feminine word for large. So we'll get to that soon. Motha or mota is a masculine noun, even though it has a tau alep at the end. Tutha is a mulberry, those kind of long, pretty sweet berries. That's just part of the root. It's not because it's a feminine noun. So in many cases, the tau alep indicates a feminine noun, but sometimes it doesn't. How do you know? Again, don't stress out about learning rules and when. Just learn these as vocabulary words and learn, as you learn them, learn that it's masculine. There are also some feminine words without a final tau, such as. And here, there are some rules. We kind of summarize them with 5 different sets of rules. There are some rules of some nouns that don't have a tau at the end are still understood to be feminine. So when you would modify them with an adjective or with a number, you would use a feminine adjective or number. So a goat is an izza. A female goat, a ewe, is a oana. Oana does not have a tau at the end before the alep, and yet it's still a feminine noun because it's referring to a female animal. The names of the letters of the alphabet are feminine nouns. So Alep doesn't have a tau at the end. The name Alep, the name of the letter, the name Beth has a tau, the name Gamal, Delath, whether or not they have a tau at the end, these are considered feminine. So if I was going to say, put one Alep at the end of the word, I would say Ghda Alep. Why is that? There's actually a reason for this, because the word for letter is feminine. The word for letter is Athutha. Athutha is a feminine. So if I was going to say the letter Alep, Athutha Alep, Alep by itself doesn't have a tau, so it doesn't sort of reveal that it's feminine. But because I'm naming a letter and the word for letter is feminine, the name of the letter itself is also going to be feminine. So anyway, that's the second class. Female animals are feminine, whether or not there's a tau. The names of the letters of the alphabet are feminine, whether or not there's a tau. The names of cities and of places in general, for some reason, are always feminine. Cities are always feminine. Babylon, Babel, is a feminine noun. It's a proper noun, but it's treated as feminine because it's the name of a city, Babylon. Nineveh, the name for Nineveh, is a feminine proper noun. Baghdad, there's no taus in any of these words so far. These are all considered feminine because they're the names of cities. Here we wrote Detroit. Detroit, just because it's a city, it's just going to automatically kind of snap into being a feminine proper noun. America is the word for American. America, it's the name of a place. It's going to be treated as feminine. So that's the third class. Letter D, the names of body parts that come in pairs. So this is an interesting hint, and this is basically universal. If you're naming a body part, if there are two of them, like eyes, naming that body part, that's going to be a feminine body part. So Anna does not have a tau, but it's treated as a feminine noun. The Anna. You say one eye, you're going to use the feminine version of one. We'll learn the numbers in the next chapter. Don't worry about that yet. Dipna, a side, you sort of have two sides. That's going to be a feminine noun. Burka, a knee, there are two knees, it's going to be treated as feminine. As opposed to the word for nose is poka, that's going to be masculine. Resha, you have one head, that's going to be masculine. So when you hear the name of a body part, if there are two of them or more than one, so like fingers or toes or something like that, if there are two, it's going to be a feminine noun. If there's only one, it's going to be masculine. So head or heart or nose. One note, the word for face, patha, that's feminine because face, you would have sort of understood just one side of your face as your face. And if you want to say what we would use as your whole face, that would be pethwatha, that would be sort of two of them. So that's actually considered you have sort of two faces, not in the negative sense of you're a hypocrite or something like that. So, okay, reviewing, female animals are feminine, whether or not there's a tau. The names of the letters of the alphabet are always feminine. The names of cities or of places are always feminine. The names of body parts that come in pairs are always feminine. And finally, other. There are just some words that are just feminine just because they are. The word for earth, ara'a, is feminine. Why? I don't know. It's just the way it is. Probably maybe some old legend of the earth being the mother or something like that. I don't know. The word for soul, jnana, is feminine. And I think every language that I know that is where the soul is not just neuter, it's always a feminine thing. In Latin, it's anima, and so on and so on and so on, with all kinds of other language. So jnana is feminine. Skina is knife. And in some dialects of Aramaic, it's skinta. The word for knife just has a tau at the end. In most dialects of Chaldean, skina doesn't have a tau, but it is considered feminine. Qawra, tomb, is feminine. Urcha, road, is feminine. Just sort of learn that these are feminine nouns. Okay. If you're frustrated by already there being exceptions to rules, just remind yourself that you're learning a language and it's never going to be easy. So it's going to be okay. Prepositions. So that's kind of all there is to say about masculine and feminine nouns so far. We'll get into making them plural in the next chapter, but that's it. That's not a whole lot to remember. Prepositions. Chaldean has two kinds of prepositions. The first kind are those that attach to the beginning of the word. These are called connected particles. These are truly prepositions. So what is a preposition? Words like in or of, to or through, something like that. So these are the prepositions that connect, 6 of them. If you want to say in or on or through, it's the preposition b. It's just the letter beth attached to the beginning of the noun. So in, let me see if here's an example here. In, on the earth, so in or on or through, on the earth over here, bara'a, bara'a, on the earth. And in fact, you'll notice if there's a vowel on the first letter of the noun, you can move it over to the preposition itself. You can say bara'a, or you can say bara. Both of them are totally acceptable. So that's the first preposition, is beth, which is in, on, or through. Deleth is a very important preposition. It means of. So the son of the king, you would put the deleth next to, you would attach it to the word for king. The son of the king, brona dmelka, dmelka. So it means of. It can also indicate a relative clause. I will talk about that later on in the book. But it could also mean the man that came to the city. The word for that, the man that came to the city, or the man who came to the city. Gora dthele lamvita. Gora dthele, the man who came. So the deleth means of, but it also indicates a relative clause. It can mean who or that. We'll see examples of that later on in the book. The easiest preposition is wow. It just means and. Again, you just attach it to the second word. The man and his son, gora ubrone. U. You just put the u at the beginning of the second word. Lemeth can mean to or for, and it can also indicate the direct object of the verb. I'll give you an example of that in a second. But if you were going to go on the road or to the road, orcha. Orcha. This is a great one. If you want to say something is like another, you say so that's another single letter preposition. He is, let's see if I have it here. He's like a tomb. Chora. He's chora. He's like a tomb. This is a shortened form of ach or mch, but it's perfectly valid to just use the sound iut chora. You're like a tomb. And then the letter mim at the beginning of a word means from. It's a shortened form of min. So the sort of full word is min, but it's absolutely legitimate. If you, instead of saying min dipna, from the side, you can say mdipna, mdipna, from a side or from the side. Just using the mim is perfectly legitimate. And in fact, historically speaking, this is an older form. Hebrew uses this, very like ancient Hebrew uses this form as often as it uses min. So I think it's a totally legitimate way to speak. I don't think it's slang. Some people might see just using the meme by itself as slang instead of min. I don't think so. I think it's actually a legitimate use of the language. So be means in, deleth means of, or a relative clause. Wow is and, lemeth is to or for, or a direct object. Ch is like, m is from. That's it. These are all the connected prepositions. Learn these, memorize these really, really thoroughly. They're extremely important in the language. Thus, bekthawa means in the book. Bekthawa, in a book or the book. Wil melka means and, which is the wow, to lemeth melka, and to the king, or to a king, something like that. Other examples, dgora, of the man, or of a man, or of a man. Chora, like a tomb. Mdipna, from a side, from the side. L'orcha, to the road. Ba'ara, on the earth. And you can take any one of these prepositions and attach it to any noun, and they work just fine. The preposition lamad can also be used to indicate the direct object of the verb, as in Gora qtalle al-malka. So the man, we don't know verbs yet, so don't worry about the verb. Gora, a man or the man. Qtalle means he killed. Al-malka, he killed the king. Now, why do you need that? This is actually important. Sometimes you really need this lemeth to say he killed the king. The king is the object of the verb. Why is that important? Because if you were saying Gora qtalle malka, word order is flexible in Chaldean. So if you were depending sort of on the way you say it, Gora qtalle malka. It could also mean, if you say Gora qtalle malka without any lemeth, it could also mean the king killed the man. So in order to avoid that kind of confusion, we can take a lemeth and put it on the object of the verb. So now you know it's the man who killed and it's the king who was killed. These prepositions are aspirated, that is, there's a vowel, either an e or a in the scholastic kind of classical Aramaic and Syriac, placed on them, unless the word they modify has a vowel on its first letter. So if there is no vowel on the first letter, you say b or d. So bikthawa, because kap doesn't have a vowel, b, the beth, has to have a vowel when you put it on there. Bikthawa, dikthawa, wikthawa. Whereas if there is a vowel on the first letter of the noun, you don't put a vowel on the preposition. So melka has a thaha on the meme, so you don't have to say b'melka. In fact, you shouldn't say that. You would just say b'melka, dmelka, umelka. Whereas when there is no vowel on the first letter, it becomes basically impossible to say. Thawa, like, I don't know, your eyeball is going to pop out of your head or something. You need to sort of make a sound. So here, dikthawa, wikthawa, bikthawa. That's the first type of preposition. The second type of preposition are those that are independent words, not always attached to the word, but separable. So these are the separable prepositions. For example, if you want to say within, you say bgo. This is just its own word, within. Bathar means after or behind. Min, we already know min from m up here. Min means from, as an independent word. So you can use either min or m, and they mean the same thing. Illid means upon or above, or in sort of classical Syriac, it's al. But in Chaldean, it's illid, upon or above. Immid means with, or again, classically, means with or along with. Immid or independent word. And to or for, so a kind of equivalent to lemeth in this sense, is the word, the independent word, ta. So you can use either one for to or for. You can use a lemeth or a ta. And these are basically just vocab words, just learn them. There's nothing really special to learn about these. They are just words that go in the middle of a sentence like any other word. So here's some examples. Bgo betha, within the house. Go means within, betha means house. Min bakhta, from the woman, or from a woman, or whatever. Illid kursia, upon the seat. Immid brona, with the son. Bathar khithna, behind the groom. That's it. Just learn these as vocab words. Speaking of vocab, let me pronounce these for you. Arya, lion. Ara, earth. And it means the earth in the sense of the planet Earth, but it also means the soil, the dirt. Ara. It could also mean the land of something, like the land of Canaan or something like that. Ara. Orcha, road. That hayth is harder. It's a ch, orcha. And maybe in your book, it would be good, we're on page 5, you can actually put a dot next to that hayth, just so when you're memorizing these vocab words, which you really should do, you'll know that it's orcha. Betha, or beitha, house. You'll hear different pronunciations of that depending on the village. You'll hear betha, betha, beta. There are different ways to pronounce it, and that's great. That's part of the richness of the language is there's different dialects that pronounce things differently. Bakhta, woman. Babel, Babylon. Burka, knee. Brata, daughter or girl. Brona is son or boy, and there's a shortened version of this, bird. You know the deleth means of, berd means son of. Bird means son of. Gaura is man. Jnana is soul. Dipna is side. Zona is time. Chithna is groom. Tablitha is a table, a small table. Kursia is a chair. Kthawa is a book. Motha or Motha is death. Again, you'll hear them pronounced either way. Motha or Motha. Ninue is Nineveh, the city. Susya is a stallion, a male horse. Skina is a knife. Aina or Ena, sometimes the A is kind of softened to an alap. Ena is an eye. Azza or Izza is a goat. Again, a lot of A's in Chaldean are kind of softened to an alap. It's fairly often. Oana or Oana is a ewe, a female goat. Qawra or Qara is a tomb. You'll hear it both as Qawra or Qara. Both of them are acceptable pronunciations. A leader is Reshana. Or sometimes you'll just hear the word Resha as like the head of the army. Now, it is important, I made this note to say Aina is very often pronounced Ana. Well, then why don't we just write it with an alap? Well, because this is the way the word is spelled, and there's no language worth its salt that spells every single word phonetically. In English, we don't say knife. Well, why is the K there? Because languages have a history, and they're not just these, and spellings of words aren't just these dumb things that you look at and you make a sound. No, there are words with history that are connected to other words and that have a kind of long pedigree. And there's other languages that share similar roots. So if you were to spell it Ana with an alap, you'd lose all kinds of connections with other languages and with history, and so we don't have to make the language dumb to make it easier. We should treat it as a true language, and just like every other language, we don't say daughter, we say daughter. Well, what's that there for? Because languages aren't these dumb things. They have histories. It's okay. And so now you have to also memorize this weird spelling? Yeah, you do. Why? Well, because it's a language and it deserves to be respected. And if you're going to learn it, respect it. All right. Let's look at some other prepositions. Illa means but or rather. In means if. We know b and bgo mean in or through. Bathar means after or behind. This is a typo. Please correct this in your book. It's not bathad. It should be bathar. This is page 5. Please correct that. Gebid means next to or by. We know deleth. Oh, it can also mean so that. You'll see examples of that. So it means that or so that. The man that, but it also means because, so that this can happen. That's another additional meaning of deleth. So it kind of means 3 different things. Don't freak out. We'll see these in practice and you'll learn it. Wow means and, kh means like, you know that already. Kul means all or every. Bed means because. Mch means like. The lemeth, the word ta or tal, you'll see how tal is used. Tale means for him, so it means to or for. Me or min is from. Illid means upon or above. Imid means with or along with. Qadam or qam means before. So sometimes the deleth is silenced. So qadam or qam is before. Should means let it be. Let something be, or may something be. Or it should be. It actually kind of also means should in English. And then ted means so that. So these are some new vocab words for you to learn here. Okay, let me read through these exercises just so you can get the pronunciation. Give these masculine nouns feminine forms. Torah, Melka, Qadisha, Kthawa. So I want you to make these into feminine using take your best guess using the information in the chapter. List the masculine and feminine nouns in this chapter of vocabulary and explain how you know which is which. Translate into English. Dgora, Bigyana, Illid Tablitha, Bathar Zona. Then translate these phrases into Chaldean. Do your best. And then compose 7 short phrases using the vocabulary found in this lesson and translate them into Chaldean. So take this vocab, make a couple of phrases, the man of Babylon, I don't know, whatever, and write them in English and then translate them into Chaldean using what you know in the chapter. Do this, do your best to memorize the content of the chapter and the vocab, and you should do just fine. I'll see you next lesson.